Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening. Welcome to, what is it? The 294th edition of Speaking of Zane. It is September the 8th, 2024. Good to have you all in there for sure. We had to skip last week. Well, we didn't have to. We skipped last week. We had Labor Day. And thought we would just let folks not worry about joining this old man talk about things, and worked out good, I guess. But it does leave a gap in my week when I don't have a speaking of Zane. But good to be here tonight to catch up on a few things and let you guys know what the heck is going on around here at the fabulous McDonald Estate and Insane Asylum. Let's see who we've got in the chat. We take the banner down there. There we go. Well, let's see who we've got in here. Toby's in there. Hey, Toby, were you at the race today? I think you were. Big NASCAR fan. Ken's in there. Lori is in there. Jimbo Miller's in there. Good to have you all in there. I did hear from Steve Shirley today that he would not be joining us. Him and Kathy are out on an excursion. In fact, he posted some photos from a cemetery visit, which I'll talk about here in a minute, in Minnesota. And then let's see, Daryl will not be here. Daryl is got a church activity tonight, so he's not going to be able to make it, but he let me know that. And I was going to see, actually I was originally scheduled to see Daryl this week when it was in St. Louis, but I changed my plans around. I'm not going to be in St. Louis this week. I'm going to be home for the next several weeks, and then I'll be spending 3 weeks of October in St. Louis, broken up by back and forth and stuff like that. But good. Yeah, I saw that, Toby. Nice to meet MJ. He is absolutely the GOAT. I don't know how anybody could ever replace him as the greatest of all time in basketball, for sure. But let's see what we got here. Hope everybody had a fantastic Labor Day. I know it's the unofficial end of the summer, beginning of the fall. You got college football starting. You got the weather changing, and it was a good weekend for us. We had did a little work around the house, as I do on the weekend. I relax. I work. I'm still working, not retired yet, but when the weekend comes, I enjoy doing things around the house and catching up on chores and stuff like that. And always managed to do that. Did some of that last weekend. But then we had a really good time on Labor Day when Jackson, Caitlin, and Carson came over, and Hannah and Everett. And Hannah's got an interest called Kaleem. He came over, got a chance to meet him. And we did burgers and hot dogs, and I did a brisket. So it was a pretty good time there. Having all them over for sure. Now, shortly thereafter, Lori made her third visit to the ER in as many weeks. And I'm glad she did, because the good news is the doc finally took it seriously, went back in, found the problem, and has resolved it, it appears. And Lori is doing so much better. I'm telling you, she could not keep any food down, and it's because of some restriction that they found in the digestive tract or something. I don't even know. But anyway, she ended up going back to the doc. Thank God for my daughter, Hannah. She's such a good caregiver. And so Hannah stayed with Lori while she was at the hospital. And in exchange for that, her son Everett stayed with me and stayed the night. And I got him up and took him to school. I got to experience the school drop off. That's a crazy orchestrated sort of activity. But I got the best end of the deal. Hannah does a great job. And anyway, so Lori was in the hospital for a couple more days, and the doc finally went back in and found what he believes was the issue. And Lori has done so much better since since that visit, and thankfully Hannah was able to get her back and forth and all of that stuff. So um, and Lori and I did a little excursion today. We went to the cemetery to see Zane, and Lori hadn't been up to doing anything like that for quite some time, 4, 5, 6 weeks. But so that's a good indication for sure there, and I'm happy for that because Lori was not physically not doing very well. So I'm encouraged by her progress just in the last few days. So that's good. But it all happened in the week where we were acknowledging the 1 year anniversary of losing Tyler, which it's incredible. It's been an entire year um, since we got the news. Lori, I was. It happened the day after Labor Day, and you guys have heard the story, I'm sure. But um, I was on my way to London. Actually, I was going to the London office, but I was going to Paris and then to London. And halfway across the Atlantic, I get a message from one of my colleagues, Ashley, very calm but very stern. Hey, you need to, how much time do you have left before you get to Paris? You need to get in touch with home. There's been an emergency. And so she made it. She didn't tell me the nature of the emergency, but she convinced me that it was serious enough that I needed to figure out how to get in touch. And in the meantime, Lori had answered the door to a sheriff's deputy, asking about, how are you related to Tyler McDonald and this, that, and the other, and then the condolences, and then um, you know our family sprung into action. I mean, Caitlin, and then Jackson, and then Charlotte was my daughter. Charlotte was actually the one I ended up talking to while I was in the plane over the Atlantic. And first thing I said is, "Your mom okay?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Is Tyler okay?" And she says, "No." And then she, told me what she knew. And then I had another 4 or 5 hour flight still. But my work was fantastic. My boss, everybody at our company was just fantastic. I had voicemails and everything. By the time I had landed in Paris, I had voicemails and from the president of our company and HR leaders and my boss and one of my colleagues had already sprung into action and coordinated for me to get a flight from Paris back to Atlanta and had a car ready for me in Atlanta to drive me home and all that. So it's just it was great, the way that your friends and colleagues will step up and help you in times like that. And this week there was 5 or 6 of them that were the most involved in those first hours, and I reached out to them all and thanked them, for what they did. And it was you know, in the worst of times, the best, people step forward, and that was certainly the case. I'm surrounded by fantastic friends and family and coworkers, and my boss messaged me this evening. But it but when you hit these anniversaries, it's very difficult, whether it's the anniversary of the passing, or if it's their birthday, or if it's Christmas, and all these things come flooding back. And I know I've told you guys over and over again, we know we're not the only ones that have experienced tragedy. We're not the only ones that have lost loved ones or even children, and we don't want any special acknowledgement for that, because we know many of you have endured tragedy as well. All we can do is tell our story, and I never want to sound like ours is unique, because many of you have experienced losses and stuff as well. But anyway, it's always these anniversaries are always so different, especially the very first one. um, is always tough. And anyway, we miss Tyler. He was the most remarkable child. He was our firstborn. He was born when we were overseas, before the internet, before cell phones, any of that stuff. And we were on our own, 19, 20, 21 years old. And but he was such a great little guy. He was just an awesome kid, and all the way, and then he just became a very troubled man, very troubled young man. And we spent the last 20 years of his life, um, dealing with his situation with drugs. And, it's just a terrible thing. I mean, I think Lori would, as hard as it is to say this, um, I mean, we knew the gravity of his situation, and had always, um, I had always imagined that this would happen, or at least thought it was a possibility, because of the circumstance. And every time, just when you think things are turning around, or just when you think they're getting better, and then you get, he had been in jail for what, Lori, 7, 8 months, you know, and you're thinking, okay, well, somebody's in jail for that long without drugs, maybe that's good. And then, he wasn't out of jail for 2 days, and the cause of death was a methamphetamine overdose. It's just, it's hard to even comprehend. But it absolutely, it becomes people make their choices, people make their decisions, but there's a point where they get beyond, and they're absolutely out of control with it. We saw it with Zane, we saw it with Tyler. There's nothing more important to include their family or their own children. And it's a terrible thing to have a front row seat to. And I don't even know how to, it's hard to even explain, or to sort of, you try to dissect it, and it's just a difficult thing. But anyway, so that was our week. Just looking back, and remembering him, and regretting that he's gone, and thinking about his children that are just awesome, Zaylee and Colby. And he named, Colby was Zane's middle name, and Tyler and Raina named their son Colby. Colby Thomas. Thomas was Tyler's middle name. But anyway, yeah, it's a tragedy for sure. But he was a good. I mean, it just got him. It just took a hold of me. He was a good guy. The biggest heart. It just he he just couldn't control it, and that's why it's hard to, when I look at drug addicts or look at folks, you know, it's harder and harder for me to judge them. It's harder and harder for me to, um, we did the whole tough love thing. We did everything, um, but they get beyond a certain point, and it's just so difficult. Um, I know people do come back from it, but our boys didn't. Um, but anyway, I hadn't planned to spend so much time talking about that. But that, it's something that's been heavy on us this week, of course, with that anniversary. But well, let's see who else we have in the chat here. Um, well, hey, Dad, there's my dad in there in the chat. And oh yeah, Lori reminds me. Yeah, Charlotte. So I was halfway across the Atlantic, and Charlotte was in Australia. And Charlotte is our child that's very level-headed, common sense, and so they decided, I don't know how, but she would be the one to tell me. And so she's in Australia on one side of the world. I'm across the Atlantic, and we had this conversation about Tyler. It's incredible. But there's my mother-in-law, Carol, is in there, and my Aunt Mary. Aunt Mary had a birthday this past week. Happy birthday, Aunt Mary. She is the youngest of the siblings. Let's see. My lawnmower crapped out yesterday. It's only 13 or 14 years old. But the handle on the mechanism and the thingamabob and the doohickey, and gosh, I'm pretty good at those kind of things, and I have my dad to thank for a lot of that. But I have not been able to make that thing work. So I'm looking at maybe after this was 13, 14 years old, I might have to go get a new mower tomorrow. But yeah, I'd planned on mowing today. I did make a nice stir fry this afternoon, though. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I have so many ingredients. I had to write them down if anybody wants to know. But the base of it was pork chops and ribeye steaks cubed, and then everything else under the sun. Oh, I think Lori even had some, but it was fantastic. Let's see. I was going to be heading to St. Louis this week, but I modified my plans for a lot of reasons. But I'm not going to St. Louis this week. I'll be home all of this week, all of next week. I'll be home all the way to about the third week of October, which is good. I need to catch up on some things, but I'll be in St. Louis the last 3 weeks of the month of October. There are a lot of activities there with graduations and different things that we've got going on there. So it'll be good to not to have to travel. Although I think Lori and I are going to Memphis for our niece's wedding sometime in September. So that'll be good. I do have, 9/11 is coming up this week. Do you remember where you were on 9/11 when the first plane hit the first tower? It was at 8:46 Eastern? 8:46. I remember exactly where I was. But you know what? There's people. I mean, there are adults now that were not alive on 9/11. They have no firsthand account, no firsthand recollection of it, and that includes many people that I work with, young folks in their early 20s. And so anyway, so we made a conscious effort at work last year to call attention to 9/11 last year on the anniversary. And if you remember, you may remember, uh, I was to moderate a panel discussion with 4 employees at our company that had a firsthand account of the activities or the events of the day. 3 of them were in New York City, one was in Washington, D.C. And I watched it again this week. It was just a great. I was supposed to moderate that, and of course, Tyler's passing, but one of my colleagues, Jay, stood in and did a fantastic job moderating it. But we decided to call attention to 9/11 because there's people that were not born and they don't understand the impact that that has had and continues to have on us every day. So this year, we're going to share that recording of that again across the company so people can watch it. But we're also doing something we've never done. At 5 of our locations in the St. Louis, Illinois area, we've got military veterans at the company that are going to lower the American flag to half staff at 8:46 Eastern, which is 7:46 St. Louis time. So we we have coordinated that. I've got groups. I've got probably a dozen or more military veterans at our company that are going to help lower the flags and give us an opportunity to talk to our colleagues at work about why we're doing that and what it means. But and then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they will raise those flags back up to full staff. So yeah, it'll be kind of fun. I'll let you guys know. I won't be there, but I've got teams of veterans that are going to be actively participating, and they're going to take some photos and stuff. But hey, Kelly, how are you doing? Good to have Kelly in there from My Warrior's Place. Kelly, Kelly, we have got to get down there in November because I've got people at my work that are saying, Guy, when are we going back to My Warrior's Place? When are we going back out to My Warrior's Place? So I said, well, let's shoot for the first couple of weeks in November. That'll get us ahead of the holidays, but maybe it'll have cooled down a little bit. So that's what we're thinking about is getting back down to My Warrior's Place. Like Lori, I miss being down there. We haven't been down. Gosh, I don't know if we've been down this calendar year. I can't remember the last time that we were down there, but my colleagues at work cannot wait to get out there, including some folks that have not come out there, but we've talked it up so much at work that we've got folks that want to get out there and experience what it's all about. So be on the lookout, Kelly, for a message from me somewhere in that first couple of weeks of November so I can get something nailed down that we can build around. But good to have you in here tonight. Well, let's see what else is going on. So I'll let you guys know next week how the 9/11 stuff went at work. I did watch some. This is an interesting time of year because you still got baseball going. And the Braves the Braves and the Mets are neck and neck at about 6 or 7 games behind the Phillies. I did watch baseball this weekend, but this is an interesting time of year because you can watch college football during the day and baseball at night. It's an interesting window, and I did watch some college football this weekend. I watched Texas A&M won their game, and then Georgia Southern had a really good game against Nevada. Went right down to the last minute. But I always enjoy this time of year. Now, if it would just start cooling off a little bit, then it would feel a little bit more it'd feel a little bit more like college football season. I know Nebraska won handily as well. All right, hat of the week. Hat of the week always has something to do with what the heck is going on around here at the fabulous McDonald Estate and Insane Asylum. And because Lori and I, and this is Lori's first visit in quite some time because she's been so ill for the last 5 or 6 weeks, we went to the cemetery today, and to spend some time with Zane. And this was Zane's ball cap, and we have pictures of Zane wearing this ball cap, and I'm so glad I still have it. You can see on the back, we do bad things to bad people. And I will wear this on occasion, and I've worn it before as the hat of the week, and I wore it today when we went to visit him. And it was a special visit. You may remember on the last, speaking of Zane, Kelly, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I recently took a trip down to West Palm Beach. It was a couple of weekends ago. A friend of mine wrote a book. She had a book release, book signing, and everything. I went down for that, and Lori had me take a small urn of Tyler's ashes. Tyler was a big beach person, and so Lori asked me if I would take some of his ashes and spread them on the beach, and I did. Well, today, now, so Lori and I went to Omaha, where Tyler spent most of his childhood. When was that, Lori? Back in March, April, and took some of his ashes with us. And he was a big baseball nut, and so we scattered some of his ashes on the ball diamond that he used to play little league on, and a couple of them, a couple of places where he played baseball, and then some more on the beach. And then today, um, Lori took a small urn of some of his ashes, and we placed them with his brother Zane. And Lori's been talking about doing that for quite some time, and so we did today. The weather's beautiful. Lori's feeling much better, um, so we did that today. Um, Now we are going to have his remains interred somewhere here, so that we've got a proper place that we can go to pay our respects to him and remember him, other than our dining room table. But anyway, so that's what we did today. Well, let's see. We had I had one. I know I've missed some of these, by the way, and if you guys ever have any of these, Steve does a good job of this. Post them this week in military history items. I know we didn't have a speaking of Zane last weekend, but we would have talked about the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I believe that was on August 26th of 2021, when we lost the 12 at the Abbey Gate. And, the administration doesn't want to remember it. The media doesn't want to talk about it. We'll never shut up about it. And we have some personal connections to it. I mean, my friend Greg Page and his lost his son, Dagan, Vice Corporal Dagan Page, United States Marine Corps, who's buried in Omaha National Cemetery. And of course, Lori and I got to meet the Espinosa family, thanks to Kelly, and the event she held there last year at the new My Warriors Place location. So we'll never forget it and never stop talking about it. There's people that would want you just to never say anything about it and not bring it up. But those men and women, two women, those men and women deserve to be honored and remembered, and I won't shut up about it. Okay, well, how about a veteran cemetery challenge? We'll go through this real quick. I know I'm getting long-winded tonight, but I know Daryl had a couple of visits since we last convened at Jefferson Barracks, where his wife, Wanda, is buried. And my dad and my sister often visit where my mother rests, there at Evergreen. We always count that. And then I mentioned Lori and I made a visit today to Georgia National Cemetery. It was just beautiful out there today. The weather's it was absolutely gorgeous. And always nice to go to Canton, Georgia. And then I mentioned Steve and Kathy I don't know where their travels have them going right now, but he posted some nice pictures from Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery in Saginaw, Michigan, which he says is near Duluth, Michigan, Minnesota. I said Michigan, Minnesota. But so I appreciate Steve always doing that. I think that was a new one for us, so I got that down as a new one. But that was 11 visits over the last couple of weeks, one of them new. So this group has made 1,264 visits. Listen to this, Kelly. 1,264 visits to 190 different locations since we started tracking this a few years ago. How about that? I never would have even thought about doing that before Zane. But now, I don't know, I almost feel obligated uh, whenever I travel somewhere. Um, even when I was in London this last trip, I went to the American Cemetery um, just southwest of London. I had not been to that one before, but they are absolutely hallowed ground and worthy of visiting. And you guys do that right alongside us, so thank you for that. Um, 1,264 visits to almost 200 different locations now. How about that? Incredible. And then, of course, every week for quite some time since our daughter Charlotte was at Texas A&M, Lori and I flew out there one time, spent a few days with her, went to a football game. On the way back, I ran into a Vietnam veteran in the airport and just spent some time with him, said hello, said thank you, and got the idea that, hey, wait, we can turn this into a little bit of a contest. So ever since then, and gosh, what was that, Lori? 2019, 2018, 19, something, whenever Charlotte was at Texas A&M. And we've been tracking that now weekly. Whenever somebody has an interaction with a veteran or a service member or a law enforcement officer or a veteran or thanks them or says hello or interacts in some way, we track that. And it's been interesting for sure. The only ones I'm aware of this week, I had a thank you. Um, I was the recipient of a thank you, and I also thanked an Army veteran at the Lowe's last weekend, and then I had a veteran at work a new guy that I had not met. I was able to thank him, and so since we started tracking that, we are at, listen to this, we are at 2,949 interactions or thank yous that this relatively small group of folks have made to veterans, first responders, military members over that period of time since Lori says 2018. So 2,949. So we need 51 more to reach another milestone of 3,000. How about that? Think about that. That's 2,949 times that a veteran or service member or first responder has had someone say thank you or we appreciate you. So in my book, that's a win for sure. My dad's adding some in there, so I'll add that. My dad thanked a Marine at the VA on Friday, so I'll get that one in, and that'll take us to around 2,950, which means we need just 50 more to get to the 3,000, and then that means we'll need to update our sign. When we hit 1,000, we celebrated. Lori did by making a banner. Here, let me share it with you. I'll have to. You see it? It's up on my wall here. See that? Started out at 1,000 thank yous. And when we got to 2,000, Lori modified it and we're just 50 thank yous away from changing that to 3,000. How about that? I like the way my camera's able to. Let's go back down here. There we go. So how about that? We're getting close. Okay, well, that's about it, I think. Well, we did have, we have a segment here that sometimes we if we lose a service member, we acknowledge that. Well, we had a couple this past week. Um, there was a young 19-year-old cadet at the Air Force Academy who was found unresponsive, unconscious in her dormitory room. I think it was last Wednesday night, and was subsequently pronounced dead. Don't know the cause of death, but tragedy. Her name was Avery Kuntz from Taylor, Texas. And then, unfortunately, there have been 3 airmen at Kunsan Air Base in South Korea that have all been found dead over the summer. One of them just last week or the week before. I don't know. I don't think they all have anything in common. It just seems odd that you would have that. But there was another airman that was found dead over the last couple of weeks. Just terrible, for sure. Okay, Lori's going to add one there, which means that'll take us to 2,951, which means we only need 49 to go. So how about that? We're in good shape to hit that next milestone. Maybe before the holidays. How about that? That'd be great. But, all right, folks. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Speaking to Zane. I know it always feels weird when we have a gap. It feels like we haven't been together in a while, but that's because we haven't, because of Labor Day. But good to have you all tuning in and listening to me talk about Tyler and Zane and sharing what the heck's going on with Lori. And I appreciate you guys showing concern and engagement and coming alongside us with the Vet Challenge and the Veteran Cemetery Challenge. And I tell you what, we couldn't be more feel more loved by our friends and family that will take a minute on Sunday nights and check in with us and make sure that we're okay here on Speaking to Zane, and we appreciate you all for that. So have a great week this week. Make it count. If you see a veteran or a first responder or a service member, man, they're worthy of stopping and saying, hey, man, I appreciate what you're doing. Not everybody steps up to do that. And then let us know about that next week. But have a fantastic week. We appreciate every one of you, and we'll see you again next Sunday night for another edition of Speaking of Zane. Great to see you all.